So we'll get started. So Coral, you said that this piece was, you didn't have a plan to bring it, or it was a last minute decision to bring it, but then at the opening, people seemed to gravitate towards it. Yeah. And it is a flocked cast iron sculpture. And the flocking is very sensual. So it's, and because here, at least the audiences feel comfortable touching things. And when I first came, I immediately wanted to touch it, and I touched it. But that's because I do that, you know? Yeah. But it's very compelling. It's a wonderful texture. And anyway, it became sort of like a very popular piece. It's almost like it has its own gravitational pull, like a solar system.
I think a lot of that is to do with the actual shadow that's created, with the way it's lit. You've got this shadow across, right? And that's what happens with the planet. You've got a dark side of the planet. And at first, when I was lighting it, I thought we'll get some light from this side and light that. But then I think that really actually helps this sort of otherworldly field. Is literally this shadow, right, the dark side. And then also the fuzziness becomes even kind of, it has a movement to it. It's like those two-tone fabric. Right, because this is orange and yellow, but it was a test piece, and I was testing the flocking, testing the felt on it, and it just had a resonance. So it literally kind of vibrates with the colour.
It's also a material that it's not associated with traditional sculpture. And I noticed you do that with quite a bit of the sculpture. Is you're not afraid to just try a material that's not traditionally been used with sculpture. I mean, you know, we're used to the patina or maybe paint, but flocking is sort of associated maybe more with furniture or these other. It comes from industry, right? But
this is a cast iron piece that's actually quite rusted underneath, and I've used an enamel paint which has a colour. It's a kind of yellowy orange colour, and then the flocking fibres are put on top. The fibres are aerated, and then they all fall down like dust. So it's a completely equal thing. And actually doing that process reminds me of like cosmic dust. Right. Like the whole studio is covered with dust. And I've used it on the COVID Earth sculpture as well, the pink felt. Right. And I think it's a nice contrast to, again, that idea of metal being a cold material, but it is actually, it can be sensuous, it can be soft, it can be moving, it can be, it just lends this idea that it's, yes, it's a precious material, but there is some kind of expansion of it, that it doesn't have to be set with these rules. Right. You know, like Degas was the first person apparently to break the laws of putting fabric on the dancer. The bronze dancer is a fabric, and then it's like, why don't you cast the fabric in bronze? Well, you don't need to, you know. Again, it goes back to that idea of the lifetime of the sculpture. So I've actually done these outside. I've done very, very large felt pieces with cast aluminum, like 8 foot tall pieces where the interior is felt. And it probably lasts for a couple of years outside, and then it starts to fade where people rub it or they sit on it. But then underneath that is the industrial enamel paint. Right. So you still keep the colour. Other ones have actually grown moss because it becomes a vehicle for the moss to grab into. And so you get these felts that then grow moss on, which is very nice.
I'm really fascinated by this, the rune stones. I think there's an intimacy to them, and it almost feels like I was thinking of a worry stone, or a ritual object that you handle and hold on to. And I was thinking about climate change because I knew that you'd taken some words that deal with nature and transformed them into these objects. So they're basically translations of words into a 3D form. But I was thinking about how the collective anxiety we're all feeling about climate change right now, and how these might represent sort of these objects that we can caress and to try to feel safer. You know, this very anxious time, which touches with COVID and this moment where we have coronavirus, which is also in part because of our overpopulation and climate change.
Yeah, well, I started this series before COVID, but they are something that I intentionally made for you to get in touch. So they're like worry stone or security stone. They're also related to a lot of early influences when I first started casting, such as the Mayan gold castings, the Egyptian scarabs and the amulets, small scale castings like Metsuki castings, you know, so the Japanese castings. So all of these castings were things that you could hold in your hand, or actually put on, like the Egyptian amulets were put on the body for safe passage to the next world. So that goes with the title of alternate worlds. It's like these are something maybe you take with you. And so the way I created them was in the computer, having a virtual ball of clay, and then I would write a message on, basic slogans really, like save the whales or safe travels.
This one is save the whales.
Save the whales. And so I write on this clay ball with virtual space in cursive, and it's kind of like raised up. And then I'll take the clay ball virtually and mirrorize it, fold it in half, almost like making some bread or dough, and wrap it around. And when I mirrorized it, I got all these wonderful sort of hieroglyphics. And I was really excited about it. You know, like the message is actually in the materials inside. And so I don't do a lot of digital work. It's not, I'm much more hands-on, but this process was speaking to me. These are 3D printed and then cast in bronze. This one is called Safe Travels. And it's just writing these futile notes like save the planet. Okay, yeah.
Right, but they take on a relevance that's bigger than the message. So a slogan is such a throwaway.
Yeah.
And yet by turning it into this precious object, it sort of gives it its importance or a value.
And the bronze this one is one of my favorites actually. And they also, they're almost like fertility.
Yes, they do look like,
you know, the Venus of Willendorf. So I chose to do it in bronze rather than iron because the bronze has that association with to copper and some more ancient cultures that would traditionally use bronze for casting, whereas iron wasn't really used for casting until the Industrial Revolution, really. Well, there are examples of it much older, but we won't go into that here.
Yes, can you
I'll be corrected by some people.
Sure, yeah. You don't want the historians to
know. But iron is wasn't traditionally defined.
Can you tell us a little bit about, like, you know, some of the different ones? What's this containing? For example, this one almost looks like a face. It's almost like a skull or a little.
Yeah, they do take on little faces.
Yeah. And do you know what the words are?
This one was, I think, be kind to the planet, or take care of the planet.
Right.
Please take care of the planet was the note that I wrote, little messages.
Which is interesting because that can seem kind of trite if you just say that. Yeah. But then when you turn it into the subject, it takes on an importance because of the quality of the bronze. There's this association with ancient
Yeah, and it becomes it's quite heavy, and they become almost like a little time capsule.
Right.
Yeah. And they can be, these are unique. There's only one off because it's the lost plastic process, which is also interesting, thinking about ecology and use of material. So I melted out plastic to get this. But the plastic I'm using is
so is it
PLA, which is
or not?
No, this is resin.
Okay.
The plastic I'm using is a soybean plastic. It's a vegetable-based plastic.
Right.
So this is resin, and this is a full color resin. If you cut that, it would be the same texture and size. So it's done on a very expensive 3D printer.
It takes on a marble quality, or also even jade. I think of jade objects, especially with the patina on some of these, even though it's
This was turquoise. Was what I was going for.
Okay.
The turquoise mining. I was interested in that kind of reference.
I wanted to just touch on, because we had this conversation about tectites, and I thought I was fascinated with that because when the images in particular, maybe more than that, because objects do feel like these amulets or sort of ritual objects. But I feel like these, because they're floating in space, take on a sort of cosmic quality, like it could be a meteor or a piece of stardust or some, exactly. And so I was fascinated by when you talked about these tectites that are actual cosmic material, and maybe you could tell us a little bit.
The tectites are when a comet or a meteorite hits the Earth's atmosphere, you get the tail, and the tail is basically the debris and the sand, and it heats up and accumulates, and almost like a raindrop or something, it will spin in the atmosphere, and then when it lands on Earth, it's a perfect symmetrical shape.
Right.
And so that's something early on in my casting that I love to look at the tectites and the meteorites and cut meteorites open and see the celestial diamonds inside. So these are, like, I wanted to put them in this sky context. So there were meteorites or asteroids. This series is of our atmosphere, our sky. This is the Milky Way, and then this is deep space. So there's a kind of context of the further away you go. There's a lot of different readings you can make of this as well, because, you know, if you leave things in the ground long enough, they will turn to diamonds.
Right.
and so these are manifested, and you'll see when they're in this Earth atmosphere, they're kind of silver and chromy, and they're melted, and then when they're in the Milky Way, they're red, they've gone red, red iron oxide, and then when they're up there, they've gone into this, what did I call this now?
Jade, the turquoise.
The turquoise.
Right, becoming more precious.
It does question what is more precious. Are diamonds more precious than turquoise? Because turquoise will be a diamond, or potentially.
Right.
You know, so
right.
It does.
And when it comes down to it, touching back on Starry Night, you know, we are 93% stardust ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's like, who makes things? Like, what are materials made of? You know, we sort of, I was interested in that idea of the hierarchy that humans give to sort of man at top, and then everything else underneath. And when the reality is the cosmos have made everything. We're all,
The other title for the show I was playing with was the stuff that stars are made of.
Right.
You know,
yes.
that was,
I get that sense.
Yeah.
I think that's funny.
That's plenty.